everyone, my name is Sarah and I'm a registered clinical counselor in the province of BC and the manager of mental wellness programs at the YMCA of Greater Vancouver. Thank you for joining me in this 5th video of the YWellness series. If you're new to this series, try checking out videos 1 through 4. YWellness is a series of 8 short videos that focus on providing education and information from acceptance and commitment therapy, also known as ACT. In the video series so far, I have discussed various ACT strategies and how they can be helpful when it comes to coping with distress. In this video, I'm going to focus on the ACT core concept of the observing self, which is the part of us that can notice and observe our experience. The observing self, as its name implies, is the part of us that can observe our experience without being overwhelmed or consumed by it. Now, this may sound a little confusing or meta, but just stay with me. It's almost like we have 2 different parts of ourselves. One part that involves our thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, and the other part, the observing self part, that can take a step back and notice all of our thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, behaviors, and more. Do you see the difference? One part of us we tend to be really familiar with, the thinking, doing, and feeling self. The other part we tend to be less familiar with, the part that can observe the thinking, feeling, and doing. Told you this one was a bit tricky. So here's another way I like to think of it. I like to imagine that there's like this little zoomed out version of myself, like a little Sarah. And the small zoomed out version is the observing self. And it's the part of me that can observe my experience, and it's different from the part of me that gets caught in the thinking, feeling, doing. So the observing self is a really helpful perspective when we're feeling overwhelmed or unsure. In these moments, we can take the perspective of the observing self. We can zoom out, notice our thoughts, our emotions, our physical sensations, our environment around us, and we can take all of this part of our experience in without being overly attached to any one particular part. Connecting to our observing self doesn't mean disconnection from ourselves. It doesn't mean not feeling our feelings or not noticing our thoughts, but rather it's a part of ourself that's deeply connected, but just in another way. If you've watched the 4 videos in the series that lead up to this video, then you can think of the observing self as implicit in connecting with the present moment, acceptance, and diffusion. These 3 ACT core concepts don't ask us to change our present moment experience, but rather to attune to it in a different way. So what's the strategy here? In this video series, I usually wrap up by discussing how we can engage with these concepts. So with the observing self, I'm going to use 2 different metaphors. The first is the sky metaphor. Our observing self is like the sky, vast and spacious. Our thoughts, emotions, experiences, and more are like all the different weather systems that exist in the sky. The sky can hold many different weather systems at the same time, and it doesn't get overwhelmed, and the sky itself doesn't change. It holds all of these experiences. Now, these different weather systems of our thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, and more are all occurring within the sky, and the observing self allows us to take the perspective and to notice all of these different weather systems without being in the middle of the rainstorm or scorching on the beach. Here's another metaphor. Imagine a stage show, and on that stage show, you notice all of your thoughts and emotions and everything you can hear, touch, taste, smell, and all of your experiences. When you take the perspective of someone from the audience, this is the observing self, that zoomed out version that can notice everything that's happening on the stage show or choose to focus in on any one part at any given time. So, with this stage show, we can choose to take it all in at once, and we can also have the opportunity to take that step back and see if we want to focus our attention or shine a spotlight on any particular area. When it comes to practicing the observing self standpoint, the idea is to see if you can connect to that part of you that can notice your experience and take this perspective of the noticer or observer. This can be particularly helpful when you're feeling overwhelmed or unsure. You can call upon these two metaphors and either take the perspective of the sky and notice all the different weather systems, or put yourself in the audience and notice what's on your stage show right now. I hope that you'll give the observing self a try. Try not to get too caught up in whether or not you're doing it right or wrong, but just try to stay with the experience of noticing and observing. And if you struggle with the observing self, go back to connecting with the present moment, acceptance, and diffusion. These are all helpful in moving towards being an observer of your experience, and they're all implicit in the observing self. That wraps up this video on the observing self. Stay tuned for the next video where I switch gears and talk about the ACT concept of values. My name is Sarah, and thanks again for joining me.